Boston Celtics actually played a close game in Detroit. Probably shouldn't have been, but hey, look, they started hot, they got cold, they came back, they won. I'll talk about it right now on a bonus Locked On Celtics podcast.
Thanks to Blockbuster brand, it's holiday season, drop Drew in the mix. And 3 from KP, no, we not on the Knicks. Flushing competition like Al on Giannis. Juice and Big Deuce, still Beantown's finest. Banner 18 going up in the rafters. Watch the C's game in Locked On NASA. Karalis on the breakdown. Clutch like a tip from D. White on the breakdown. John on the mic, documenting domination. Pen a back bay, it's all C's nation. Rain and J's, how it started, raising business, how we finish. Locked On Celtics pod, home of the winners.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day, and I've got you covered every day, Monday through Friday, plus a bonus podcast like this one on a Saturday night when they've played and they've won. I'll do it after they've lost too, but bonus podcast whenever they've played. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcast. Watch the show on YouTube and get into that comment section. Let me know what you're thinking about a Boston Celtics win 124-118 over the Detroit Pistons. I'm John Karalis. If you're new to the show, I've been covering this Celtics team for, about 20 years now. That's my name right there on YouTube. I'm doing it as a beat writer for Boston Sports Journal. I've also written a book called Built Different, celebrating the Boston Celtics Banner 18. Buy it on johnkaralis.com. Signed, personalized, $30 out to you wherever you are in the United States. Celtics get this win. This is a bonus podcast, so I'm not doing the whole half hour. Just a quick one here for you so you get something to listen to on a Sunday or watch on a Sunday. So you don't have to pay attention to the Patriots if you're a Patriots fan. Who wants to do that? They're not good. The Celtics are very good. The Celtics won this game 124-118. They're 3-0 on the season, and it's actually pretty good. They got a tough one out here, and they had a 23-point lead. They lost it. They ended up getting down by about 6. I think the biggest takeaway here from this game, at least as far as losing the lead, I want to give full credit to the Pistons. The Pistons are better than I think their record is probably going to show. They did a lot to kind of bother the Celtics. The Celtics talked about the physicality that the Pistons presented, which has always been a problem, right? You go back 2-3 years, the Pistons have always been a very physical, strong team, and that's the archetype that gives Boston problems. The playbook, I think, is to be physical with the Celtics and see how they respond. And not great in this game. The Celtics got up 23, and I think they might have gotten a little comfortable. They got away from the things that were working. The Celtics at one point were 15 of 27 from 3. They ended up 22 of 48. So they were super hot and then they cooled off. But why did they cool off? I think they got away from a lot of the things that were working for them. The drives, the driving kicks, the rim reads. I think there were probably, I can remember 4 or 5 at least in the third or fourth quarter, plays where the Celtics had open 3-point shooters, but a combination of guys drove and decided, I'm just going to try to finish this. And as we've seen with Joe Mazzulla plenty of times, he'll tell you that a contested layup is a lower percentage shot than a corner 3-pointer. So an open corner 3 has a higher efficiency than a contested layup. And so many people want to say, no, just drive. And, it's a layup. Take the layup. And I get that on occasion you want to mix in the drives. You don't want to get into the habit of just moving the ball around the perimeter. You want to move the ball around the perimeter, but you also want to mix in some drives. So yes, swing, but it's got to be drive, kick, swing. So I think the Celtics got away from the drive kick portion of that for a little too long. And I think Jaylen Brown, he was 6 of 24, and I think 3 of 9 from 3. So 3 of 15 from 2. Bad shooting night, but also bad driving night, bad rim read night until the fourth quarter. The way I described it on Boston Sports Journal was, I feel like Jaylen Brown's night was ordering a salad at a restaurant. Bear with me. Ordering a salad at a restaurant. You know, you go to a restaurant and they have like these kind of like crazy salads, and there are a bunch of things in there, and you're like, I just don't want these, like, you know, these 3 or 4 weird things that you throw into the salad. And they bring it out and they have just given you the straight salad anyway. They didn't take out any of the things that you didn't want. So you have to eat around the things that you don't want. And in the end, it ends up being still good for you, right? It's still a salad. It's still, you leave the restaurant feeling like, I made a good choice. This was still good, but I still want to complain about this for the whole ride home. Right? Like that to me was Jaylen Brown's night. It was still good. At the end, I feel like he did a lot of good things, yet I feel like I want to complain about it the whole ride home. 6 of 24, like I said. He started off great. He finished great. In the middle, it was going for his own a little bit too much. And I feel like it's still finding his rhythm, still finding his place in, maybe not finding his place, but I guess the Celtics are still figuring things out, right? We know they brought everybody back. It's the same team. Everything feels like it's the same. We have to be cognizant that this team is going to be figuring themselves out for a little while. Even though it's the same people and it's the same team technically, it's not the same team as last year because there's a championship that they've won. There are elements like Jaylen wore like Nike branded shoes at the beginning of last season. Now he's wearing his own shoes. And that's something that's different, right? He wore shoes at the beginning of last season that were there for him. And then he spent an off season creating something. And now he's cognizant of, like, these are my shoes, right? It's just a different mentality. There's something different about this season, even though Jaylen Brown is the same. He's the same, but different. Jayson Tatum is the same, but different. He's worked on his jump shot, and that jump shot was very effective. 6 of 13 from 3, 12 of 26 overall. But even though it's the same players, the team is different, and the league is different, and the officiating is different, and the opponents are different. So even though the names on the roster are the same, the people aren't exactly the same, and the situation isn't exactly the same, and the league isn't exactly the same, and the rules aren't exactly the same, and the officiating, and so on and so on. So it's going to be a little bit of a work in progress. The Celtics are going to be figuring themselves out a little bit, and so Jaylen, I think, is in that mode. But he started off great, he finished great. And I think the finish part is really important because, okay, 24 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, a steal. Even though the shooting numbers weren't great, like I said, at the end, even though I feel like, oh man, I kind of want to complain about this, in the end, you're like, no, I made a great choice. This was a great choice. This was a great game. The last 4 minutes, the key play in this was Jaylen Brown making an incredible rim read. For Jaylen to be driving to his left, looking like he's got a clear shot at the basket, but then a late contest, for him to not just try to finish over that contest, which is something he tried to do in the third quarter, late second quarter, he saw in that moment that, okay, I've got a kick out. And let me be fair about this with Jaylen. There were a few drives where the rest of his teammates weren't also rotating in the right way. I said after the last game that the Celtics are really good at recognizing where they should be on the floor. And I don't think those teammates were quite there where they should have been. And maybe Sam Hauser would have helped. He missed the second straight game with lower back soreness. But the teammates weren't there. Jaylen wasn't really looking for them. And even if he was, they weren't there for a stretch of the game. But that play with about 4 minutes to go, 3 and change to go, drive left, kick, drive, kick, swing, swing. Drew Holiday hits the corner three. Beautiful. That play was the game changer. That rim read was the game changer. Big, big, big credit to Jaylen for making that play in that moment, because that's a play where Jaylen would, I can see him trying to finish over that, through that, but he made the right rim read, and he doesn't get statistical credit for that play, but that was beautiful. Holiday, who had not been having a great game to that point, Holiday hits that three, hits the next three, and the Celtics were fine after that. But again, a lesson of you got to play the right way for 48 minutes. Now, no team ever plays the right way for 48 minutes, so it's not always going to happen, but you want to get as close to that as possible. Jayson Tatum played great for most of this game. Again, he also had a low in the middle of it, but he started out super hot, 17 points in the first quarter, finishes with 37 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. So Jaylen, the 10 rebounds, he had a couple of big ones in the fourth quarter. Like Jaylen Brown's rebounding was unbelievable. He led the team with 5 assists, which, considering what I watched, that he led the team with 5 assists, I'm like, oh, that's actually a little bit of a surprise, an eye opener. But Jaylen had a great game. Jayson had a great game overall. In the first half, it was Jayson in the first quarter. Second quarter was Peyton Pritchard, who finished with 19 points off the bench, 5 of 7 shooting from 3, 17 points for Derrick White, who didn't hit a 3, which is weird. Al Horford, 5 of 8 from 3, 17 points. I'm gonna put this out there, and I think, like, I'm arguing with myself about this point. I don't think that Joe Mazzulla should have only played 8 guys. It's the Detroit Pistons. It's October. You're really playing only 8 guys against the Pistons, but at the same time, Jayson Tatum didn't play in the fourth quarter of either of the first 2 games. Jaylen barely played in those first 2 games. Al played 20 minutes in the last game. He played 32 in this one. I'm not thrilled that it was Jaylen with 38 minutes, Jayson with 38 minutes, Al with 32, Derrick with 39, Drew with 36. And even though Sam Hauser didn't play, so it was Luke with 19, Peyton with 19, Tillman with 18. Not thrilled with that distribution. I would like to see him play, like, just trust either Jaden Springer or Jordan Walsh. Just trust those guys. You got to play those guys at some point. So if you're not going to play them now in October, when are you going to play them? There's a part of me that's like, I'm not going to say I would rather lose, but I would rather Jaylen and Jayson play 35 and Al play 25 and Derrick play 35. You know what I'm saying? And play Springer, play Walsh. These are the minutes. And if it is a loss, fine. It's fine. But I would rather not have those minutes be out there. But also, arguing with myself, the Celtics didn't play a ton of minutes in the first 2 games. So, okay, I'll give you this one, Joe Mazzulla. But You got the Bucks coming up and then a couple more road games after that. I don't want to overtax these guys right now. But okay, fine. We'll overlook it. Horford coming in with 4 and change left to go was really big for the Celtics. He his spacing was big. It allowed for a lot of things to happen. I think maybe if this game was more in hand, Horford wouldn't have played, but this would have been an opportunity for maybe Tillman to get a few more minutes. But regardless, Horford coming in changed things. I think his last 4 minutes were impactful, even if he didn't do a ton. Like I said, he did more of his scoring early in the game, but Horford's spacing allowed for the Celtics to get those driving kicks a little more often. And maybe the lesson here is when Porzingis comes back, these types of things won't happen. But it is important for the Celtics to fight for their offense. Offense is tied to defense. Their defense was not good. There is a concern about the points in the paint where the Celtics got just crushed points in the paint, 56-28. It's the third straight game where the Celtics got crushed in points in the paint. I don't mind that the Celtics are losing points in the paint because I expected that. Porzingis isn't there. There isn't necessarily a shot blocker there. Horford isn't going to be defending the rim. So there are going to be opportunities at the rim. But the Celtics continue to get blasted in the paint. I want to see maybe a little bit more effectiveness there defensively. But they make up for it in other ways. And a lot of that is the 3-point shooting. So I want to see the Celtics shore up the points in the paint. That's if they just clear up the offensive rebounds, if they clear up some of the defensive miscommunications, then a 56-28 deficit in points in the paint becomes a 40-28 deficit in points in the paint. I'll take a 12-point deficit because I know the Celtics 3-point shooting is more than going to make up for that. But getting actually doubled up. I was going to say basically doubled up. They literally got doubled up points in the paint. That's too much. So they do have to clean that up. They have to clean up their turnovers. They have to clean up their the shot selection. They just cannot be driving with reckless abandon and going 1-on-2 offensive drives, getting to the rim, contested layups. That's where they get into trouble. Even if the Celtics didn't have a ton of turnovers, they finished with 11 or 10 for 11 points. They actually won the turnover battle and the points off turnover battle. But the missed shots, the missed 2-pointers, the missed layups might as well be turnovers. And I think the Celtics count it as such. Clean that up. Clean up the rebounding, the offensive rebounding that they allowed. The Pistons got 9 offensive rebounds. They had 16 second chance points. Again, the Celtics won the second chance points battle, but they didn't have to give up 16. There were probably 3 or 4 baskets that they could have prevented. So there are things to clean up. Again, Celtics are a work in progress. Even as champs, even as, a returning team, everything else around them is different. And I'm okay with a game where they had to finish strong and make plays. Derrick White is awesome. Derrick White's block of Cade Cunningham at the end. It's my focus on Boston Sports Journal, what I wrote there. That was an incredible play. And the fact that he just continues to make plays like that, it blows my mind. Derrick White just fills in whatever gaps you need. Do you need him to make shots? He generally does that. Do you need him to make plays on defense? He generally does that. Derrick White was huge in this game. So Celtics escape, I guess, Detroit with a win. It's good to get these tough. It's not always going to be pretty, but it's good to get these tough games under your belt, and they're going to have to figure out games like this down the road. So might as well get them now while it matters less. The Celtics play Monday night. They host the Milwaukee Bucks. I will be here with a whole week of podcasts, bonus podcasts when they play. So subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Watch the show on YouTube. Share the podcast. Tell everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.